Hello, this is part one in a video series that is going to take a look at the principles of 3D modeling. In this video series in particular, we're going to take a look at how we can use polygon primitives, such as the cube you see I've created here on my grid plane, to create more complex objects. In this case, we're going to take a look at creating one of these chairs. Now, this chair itself, and you see I've got an arrow diagramming here to one of these. These chairs can be made of individual polygon cubes that have been grouped together. And as you can see in some of them, like the curved bars along the side or the curved back or even the curved seat, we're going to have to make sure that we can add a couple of extra divisions to these cubes so that they can be bent to more closely approximate a curved form. Now, by now, you're no doubt aware that there are several different types of 3D geometry. There is the NURB surface, which is inherently curvilinear, and there's also the polygon surface, which is inherently straight-edged, as you'll see here. A third additional type of 3D geometry, called the subdivisional surface, is sort of a hybrid between the two, and something that probably you'll examine later on. Now, we're going to start off with the most simple type of 3D geometry, which is a cube and a polygon model. Very easy to understand and makes it very easy to work with for this task. Now, you're going to see as I'm working around this, there'll be several different areas of the screen that we're going to be taking a look at. The model itself is going to be built inside of the viewport. I'm going to be going in and out of the channel box and attribute editor to create several different options and make sure I've got several different options established for this cube. We're also going to take a look at the toolbox, manipulating several different movement, rotation, and scale values in particular. You'll also see me from time to time go to the 4-panel view, or back to the perspective view. I'll be talking about hotkeys as I do a lot of this as well. The options for creating primitives such as this cube can also be found on the polygon shelf, and this is the polygon shelf tab. You see, you can also make individual shelves for yourself as well, as I've done in this case. Now, I've deleted out that cube. We're going to start from scratch, and in the process of this, we're going to build out the entire chair. Now, for me, when I'm trying to create something like this chair, I first want to look at the general proportions of the piece. To find that out, I usually want to start with something like the seat of the chair first. Let's make some very careful calculations here. I can actually see on this chair a little bit easier how many horizontal slats there are. And I'm just going to give a count across this. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 slats. So one of my first tasks is going to be make sure that this count remains accurate. You'll also notice we've got a dip in this section. We've got bars holding this up on either side. You can even see them on the other chairs arranged around. And that's where I'm going to start first, because this is also going to tell me how high off of the ground I need to make my chair. And since I've got an already established ground plane, I can base pretty much everything off of that. Now, one of the things you will notice is that down in the lower left corner, there's going to be a gizmo which tells me my X, Y, and Z directions, which axis is facing forward, to the left and the right and to the sides. Now, when you're building, you're going to want your Z-axis to face forward, your X-axis to face towards the right, and your Y-axis to point up and down. This is because these axes are actually going to correspond to the top, front, and side views in your orthographic cameras. I hit spacebar to return to my perspective camera. And now I'm going to start by building out one of these slats for the seat. I want to start with a cube. Simple, simple enough. And once I've managed to create this cube, we have to figure out where to put it, and maybe how much curvature is going to be needed. So I see that the cube itself probably needs to be flattened a little bit and extended out. Let's move it forward and up so it fits its correct spot. And then I want to make sure that it has this proper curvature. I could potentially see one dip in the center with maybe 2 dips on either side. That would give me sort of 4 divisions across this section. Now, in future tutorials and maybe in your future training, you'll look at additional ways to add geometry to the model after the fact. But in this very basic tutorial, what we're going to look at doing is creating new geometry from the get-go. To do this, I'm going to click on the far left of the 3 dialog options in the top line of Maya, and this icon is going to open up the attribute editor. In the middle tab of the attribute editor, you'll see Polycube 1. This is your initial creation attributes. Here's where I can alter the number of subdivisions for the width, for the height, and for the depth of this cube. Well, since I want to add just a couple of divisions going in the direction you see here, that to me looks like I need to add 4 divisions to the width. And as you can see, 1, 2, 3, 4. It counts the faces across. Now, one of the key things that you have to notice with this is that if you come into your cube, for instance, and enter component mode and move one of the components first, and then try and add a new geometry, your model is going to freak out. That's why these are initial creation attributes. You have to add them at the time of creation before you ever enter your attribute or your component mode. Sorry. Well, once I have these created, I can right-click on my model to choose the correct component that I need. Now, I find it's usually easiest to edit your models in Vertex component mode. So I'm going to choose Vertex for my marking menu, and again, that was right-clicking on the model. You'll see Vertex. My mesh, as you can see now quite clearly, is a blue color, a teal blue color, instead of being a green wireframe like it was before. The vertices are the intersections of your individual edges, and it's these which I can drag a selection over to alter. To create curvature, I'm just going to nudge these down a little bit with the Move tool. If you're wondering about the Move tool, we can switch from the regular pointer tool to the Move tool by either choosing it in the toolbox or by hitting W on the keyboard. I will move this down and then select just the middle ones and move those down. And I have got my first brace. To return to object mode, I can right-click and say object mode, or a very easy way to do that is to use the F8 hotkey to toggle yourself back and forth. I want to create a back piece as well as this front piece, and one thing you'll notice about the back piece is it actually sits lower than the front piece. So I'm going to duplicate this, and I'm going to move it down. To duplicate this back piece, I'm going to go to Edit and choose Duplicate. And you'll see the hotkey for this is Control-D. I'm going to duplicate this. I'll move it back. It's an approximate distance. And I'll also move it down ever so slightly. Right now we've got 2 individual pieces for this brace of the chair. Next up, I want to create the other sides of this square. Well, very simply, I'll create a new cube, and I will move it up. I will hit R, which is the hotkey for scale, or grab the scale tool in the toolbox. Scale it together. Extend this out. And roughly position this on the side. Using the rotate tool, which is the E button, I can move this down just a little bit. And now we've got really, I think, a very strong starting point for the base of this chair. In the second part of this video, we're going to take a look at creating the slats and actually duplicating this side over. So please hold on.